Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. See the mic? Tayyib, any questions? No questions? Let's see if there's anything online before we pray. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh to everybody. First question is coming from Toronto, Ontario. Initials AA. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Nana Umrah Hajj are open. Can we expect a HadithDisciple Umrah or Hajj group in the near future? Inshallah ta'ala. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. By Allah's permission. Something that's long overdue. And we'll seek Allah's help to do whatever we can to make it happen, inshallah ta'ala, and get rid of any obstacles. Question is coming from Furqan from Washington, D.C. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. That's your man? Sound like it? Inshallah. Friend of yours or friend of ours? Friend of the family or what? Which one? Friend of the family or friend of mine? Friend of the family, inshallah. Hopefully. Sheikh Barakallahu Fikum. Initials EA from Valenciennes, France. Can shaitan do waswas with non-religious things? For example, make people have anxiety, crisis, or exaggerated fear of being mentally ill? Well, the deen and the dunya will always be connected one way or another. You have worldly problems, worldly stress, worldly anxiety, fears. In most cases, it's going to trickle into your deen, especially a deen like Islam that is hands-on. It's not no one day out the week religion. It's not just a religion. It's not just a faith. It's a way of life and death. One period to the next. This dhikr, these adhkar, wudu, salah, ghusl, everything is always going to be connected. So if you're suffering from extreme fear or anxiety, that's going to trickle into your prayer, going to sleep, waking up, making dua, reading Quran. Do I have wudu? Is my wife divorced? Is this halal? Etc., etc., etc. So it's always going to be a connection. All right? Allah tells us in the Quran that the shaitan attempts to make the believers sad, to cause them sadness. That's in the Quran. So there's no doubt about that. Any type of imbalance, of course, shaitan is going to use and exploit. Too much lust, too much hunger, too much thirst, right? Too much fear. Every human being has some fear. And fear, no doubt, is something Allah created and placed inside the human being for major wisdom. Fear saves your life. Your instincts kick in. Your body is telling you danger. That's a good thing. But too much of it. Being brave, being courageous. That's a tremendous thing. But too much of it leads to recklessness. And that recklessness will cause you to ruin your life and the life of others. So any type of too much of one thing is never good. And of course the shaitan is going to what? He's going to use it. He's going to exploit it, right? Wallahu ta'ala alam. What's important is try your best to avoid being extreme and excessive. ZA from Queens, New York. Do women pray differently than men in certain positions in the prayer? Based off of Quran and Sunnah, yes. If there's something in Quran and Sunnah to state that, yes. And if not, you pray just like men. AM from Schenectady, New York. Can we still do some fasting in this month before Ramadan? The Prophet ﷺ fasted so much of Sha'ban. Fasted abundantly in Sha'ban. And there are many hadiths regarding the virtue of fasting in Sha'ban. That's the Sunnah. We've done lectures on this before. TA, Chicago, Illinois. As far as the middle of Sha'ban or half of Sha'ban, إِذَا انْتَصَفَ شَعْبَانُ فَلَا تَصُومُوا When the middle of Sha'ban comes, then don't fast. Then that's a long discussion regarding that hadith, its authenticity and what's meant by it. It's a long discussion. T.A. from Chicago, Illinois. What's your thought on people who say that laymen can choose any opinion they like as long as it's from a credible, well-known scholar? What's important is a layman, if he's brought up as a Muslim, is going to be taught in school by your parents, or even if it's just following the culture, the norm. So there's always going to be a norm for a layman. I come from Turkey. This is how Muslims pray. This is what Muslims do. This is what, et cetera, et cetera. So I follow that because I'm a layman. This is how we were taught in school to pray like this, to fast like this, to dress like this. This is the style of hijab in my country. As a layman, you ask a learned person, regardless of their madhab, when something pops up and comes up, an issue that you're unsure of, that's new, or you want advice on something that you previously learned, then you go to that person indiscriminately, regardless of their madhab. Shafi'i, Maliki, Hanbali, Ahlul Hadith, Zahiri, etc. As long as you believe and feel in your heart that they are learned and that they have some fear of Allah that prevents them from lying on Allah or making things up. So that part of it is true. But people oftentimes, as we said before, they create monsters from thin air. They create situations which don't exist. Like we said about domestic abuse in the Quran. All right, they make things up. When is a layman Muslim going to be totally away from the teachings of Islam, whether they're right or wrong? He grew up in a country, the scholars there are Maliki. So from this small to this tall, his whole life he's around what? Maliki fiqh. So it's common sense he's going to be following that. But something pops up and he's living in America. There is no Maliki mufti. Right? He's on Hajj. Something comes up. He asks a mufti there who's Hanbali. Right? So there's no separation between the two. And Allah surely knows best. And of course, a long discussion with regards to madhabs and the fanatics and the zealots of those madhabs and the harm that they've done to the Muslims. Assalamu alaikum. I'm from New York. Moving forward. AA from London, UK. Mufti, when can one pay zakat, before or after Ramadan? Like how long before or after? Zakat has nothing to do with Ramadan. People choose to make or to pay their zakat during Ramadan for its blessings. But zakat, the legislation of zakat in 12 months has nothing to do with Ramadan, period. The moment you have the money or the possessions or whatever you're paying zakat on for 12 months, zakat is due. Before, during, or after. And it's an example of a custom that people do with good intentions that becomes harmful. And people, they start thinking and believing that Ramadan is the zakat month. And it's abadan. Dhul Hijjah, Sha'ban, Muharram, whatever the month is in which the 12 months comes, the zakat is due. People like to calculate their zakat and give it in Ramadan, feeding people, breaking people's fasts, orphans, widows, etc., etc. That's a good thing. But under any circumstance, is that mandatory or obligatory? And Allah surely knows best. The next question is coming from initial CC from Moscow, Russia. There is the rule here. There is the rule here and obey on Quran and Sunnah. If I don't trust the person quoting the Quran and Hadith, can I answer, let me first check what you said myself before I obey? There's no doubt about that. You have to, if you feel that way. But if you don't have that thought, you do trust them, even if you don't know everything, if that's your legitimate Islamic leader, no doubt. You must listen and you must obey to your Amir, to your Imam, to your ruler, who is legitimate in light of Quran and Sunnah. And Allah knows best. Question is coming from MI, Birmingham, UK. Can one marry their step-grandmother's sister? You marry someone, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, who isn't your mahram. This woman who's your step-grandmother, is she your mahram or not? If she is, then the lineage, the general rule is going to trickle up and down. Daughter, granddaughter, etc., 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 mother, grandmother, etc., etc., etc. If there's no mahram connection, then what? There's no mahram connection. MS from Cincinnati, Ohio. Is it true that the 15th night of Sha'ban du'as are accepted? There are many different narrations regarding these things. What's important is fasting in Sha'ban after the middle of Sha'ban is lawful. If there's authentic hadith from Quran and Sunnah stating that, then that's one thing. And if not, then the dua is the dua. Before, during, or after, the middle, or the beginning, or the end of Sha'ban. Wallahu alam. People that make up many hadiths and many fabricated hadiths regarding these things. Rajab, the middle of Sha'ban, so on and so forth. I ask from London, UK, should father's name or family name be given as last name or child? Islamically, barakallahu fikum. Islamically, the father's name should be a part of the child's name. Muhammad ibn Abdullah. And there is no first and last name system in Islam. It shouldn't be like that. Abdullah, whatever his last name is. It's supposed to be the son of. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Wallahu alam. MN, Decatur, Georgia. If someone asks, where is Allah? Can the response be both he's near and or above his throne, befitting to his majesty? Paraphrasing the ayah. There lies no doubt Allah Azza wa Jal and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as well has told us both that Allah is above all of his creation, the most high, the most lofty, and that Allah Azza wa Jal is close to his servants. That's in Quran and Sunnah, both of them. Where is Allah? Allah Azza wa Jal is where he said he is, period. Whether you say he's above the heavens, above the throne, and that's it, or whether a person says Allah is above all of his created beings and he's close to his servants. What's important is whatever you say has to be Quran and Sunnah. Whatever's found in Quran and Sunnah, that's what you say. Whatever's not found in Quran and Sunnah, you don't say. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Next question is coming from London. Initials RM. How to deal with extremely narcissistic father who makes every single interaction difficult and aims to oppress me. He doesn't accept any advice and insults his whole family continuously. You have to make dua for your father. Pray for him. And try to get him help. Try to get him counseling. He's suffering from something in his childhood. Someone did the same to him. He came from that type of toxic background. Pray for him. Be kind to him. Try to be the bigger one. Try to be the better one, inshallah ta'ala. And try to find someone that'll give him nasiha. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Wallahu alam. Question comes from Queens, initial CA. I remember being told that Hanafis don't consider the feet to be a woman's awrah. Does that also apply in front of non-mahrams or only in the prayer? Jazakallahu khairan. What's important is that the ulama of Islam, concerning a woman's awrah, there are many things that they agree on, most things. And there's some things in which they don't agree, they differ. What's important is there are exceptions to the rule with regards to prayer and non-mahram men. Scholars who say that the woman's face has to be covered in front of non-mahram men and her hands, many of them allow her or they command her to pray with her hands and her face uncovered, having her hand and her face touch the ground, making sajda with her. So some scholars, they do give exceptions to the prayer versus non-mahram men. So Allah knows best. Some of those Hanafi scholars may say she doesn't have to cover her feet in the prayer, but it doesn't mean she's allowed to show her feet in front of non-mahram men. All right? And of course, there's a big difference between a woman showing some of her feet wearing normal shoes or sandals versus pedicure, painted toenails, henna, okay, toe rings, okay, gold anklets, etc., bangles, etc. There's a difference. And many laymen people, when they deal with these different differences of fuqaha, they violate the opinions that they claim to follow. An example of this, covering face and hands in front of non-mahram men. Does a woman have to wear niqab or not? So a woman, she says, I don't believe it's mandatory, or I follow this teaching. This is what I was taught my whole life. These are the people that taught me that I don't have to cover my hands and my face. No problem. but then they go outside wearing a ton of makeup. They go outside with their ears exposed. They go outside with a nose ring. They go outside with this piercing. They go outside with the earrings showing. No scholar. The scholars who say that you don't have to cover your hands and your face in front of non-mahramin, none of those scholars allow that. And the same applies to other things with regards to different fatwas about mortgage or music or whatever the issue is. The people, they don't even follow that view the correct way. The mufti that said you can buy this house, the one who said you can listen to this, the one who said you can dress like this, he put conditions on it. And you are violating those conditions that he himself placed on the permissibility of doing it. All right? So if they said that you can expose your feet in a prayer, it doesn't mean this and that. A woman's feet don't have to be covered outside in front of non-mahramin. It doesn't mean that she can have all types of things on her feet, adornments on her feet, etc., etc. You guys get the point I'm trying to make? The face and the hands are not covered. It doesn't mean that you can wear rings and fingernail polish and henna. It doesn't mean none of that. The scholar said that you can wear this. It doesn't mean that you can wear it like that. Because he himself said she's allowed to dress like this without such and such and such and such. If she wears these additional things, now she must what? Cover her feet, cover her hands, cover her face, etc. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Next question is coming from RN from Silver Spring, Maryland. Is it possible for some sisters to plan a sisters Taraweeh night event where only sisters have after iftar and pray Maghrib Isha? There's a ticket fee to help with the costs. Having a sisters gathering at a specific time, a specific place, that's fine. You guys are going to pray like you normally pray. You have some other activities of knowledge or halaqah, that's nothing wrong with that. It's khairan. As long as you don't make up no special acts of worship, that's a different story. And Allah surely knows best. AH from Saskatchewan, Canada. Assalamu alaikum. If someone drinks alcohol before Ramadan, will it be accepted from him, given the 40 days of prayers not being accepted? Jazakumullah khairan. Only Allah knows what is accepted. What's important is the Prophet said 40 days prayer isn't accepted. And the hadith does not state fasting. Wallahu ta'ala alam. AM from Toronto, Canada. Sheikh, can I make dua for an illness that is inside my body but not visible for a cure once and forgot about it and live happily and trust Allah? Someone said it is not sufficient. I don't understand the question. JJ from Buffalo, New York. What's the ruling on buying pre-foreclosure and foreclosure homes on the agreement that you will pay the debt owed even though it may have interest on it? Clear problem. Initials AR from Houston, Texas. How does currency exchange need to be completed from US dollars? Khair, inshallah. We'll stop here tonight. Offer Salat al-Isha. And whatever question isn't answered here, you guys can repost it during the next feed. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Sallallahu sallam wa barak. Ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina wa imamina Muhammad.